So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of jump into it. So I'm going to be working on the Hallow Queen. This is one of the prompts of Drawtober. And all of Drawtober I was working with a different medium every day. And I'm kind of known for being a graphite artist. So I wanted to show not only everyone else, but I guess to prove to myself that I can work in other mediums as well. And this one particularly was the last day in October. So this was day 31, Hallow Queen, get it? Play on words. And I didn't finish it. I was at a convention that I wasn't even supposed to be at, but not only did I have my own convention for my vonnart booth, but I had to have a booth for Drawtober as well. And it was the first time we had a Drawtober booth, so I had to have a lot of work. So unfortunately, my ambitions for creating this big graphite Hallow Queen got pushed to lower priority, and I didn't get to finish it in October. So with that extra time, though, I'm going to put a little more extra love into it because my whole plan of Drawtober was to have all these different mediums throughout the month, and at the last day, go back to what I am known for, graphite, and really like hit a home run. But unfortunately, that didn't happen, but that's okay. I'm kind of roll with the punches, and I've learned to do that throughout my career. So now I get to work on it today. And this is something that I want to have done before the end of December, along with my collector. So if you guys have been following my streams recently, I've also been working on this piece with a lot of arms and hands. So you can see where it's at. I keep working on it almost like a half hour every day. It's one of those things where I'm timing myself, and I'm realizing that you guys should try this out if you also feel like you are a slower artist. When I have a timer going off in the background, I notice that I am making decisions quicker, and I'm not noodling as much as I tend to, which I know is a big problem for me. So if that is something that you feel may help you, just have a little timer and set it for an hour. Have it bing or set an alarm, and when that hour's up, you go take a break, go get juice, go get a drink, whatever you need to, and then come back to your drawing and see the progress that you made. Another thing that helped is I took a photo before and after that hour, and that way you can actually literally see what you were able to do in that hour. And then last night I was up till like 4 a.m. and I started at like 1, but I didn't time myself. I had shows going on in the background. I was kind of piddling. And I took a picture before and after, and over the span of 3.5, 4 hours, I kind of made the same amount of progress that I did in the timed hour. So I'm wondering if it's like a mental trick that when you know that there's a timer going off that's only an hour, that... Oh, and I'm sorry, I didn't have the timer for last night. I just recognized what time it was. And with the timer, it just made me go faster. And that's something that I would at least recommend trying for you guys as well. So that is where we're at with the collector. This is another drawing I hope to finish. I'm not going to say hope. I will finish by the end of the year. There's basically like 3. I have 3 pieces I need to finish. I'll show you all of them. Why not? So I have my Hallow Queen. We have the collector with all the hands and arms. And then the last page of Red's backstory. And once this is done, I'm going to make a little zine, which if you see my Instagram, I posted some new commissions that I've gotten recently of Red. So that's what I'll be working on over this next month and a half and getting it done. Because then I have to work on my 3rd sketchbook in the Kickstarter in April. So lots to do, but I am so excited to finally be home because I have been away traveling so long. So I am ready to actually get some work done. Okay. The other thing I'm going to do before we start is I'm just going to share the tools that I'm using for any of you guys that are interested. For the erasers, I'm going to work with a kneaded eraser and a mono 0 circle tip eraser. I love these. These are the only 2 erasers I ever use. And then for pencils, I've been working a lot more with traditional over mechanical. I'm not one of those that believe in looking down upon mechanical pencils. I still love them. Oh, thank you, Digital, for resubbing. Well, you're a full year. See, I need to get you something too. I know, I can't believe it's been a year since oh, that really made the candy jar explode. And I don't need candy corn anymore. It is almost December. I really need to change that. But I do appreciate it. Thank you, Tijol. Okay, so I'm working more with traditional pencils, and with these loose sketch drawings, I typically work with a 6H or something lighter. I did just get the entire box set of Kimberly's, so I might try working... I've never really worked with like a 3H or a 4H before. So I'm going to be working with those, I think, a bit as well. You know what? Might as well just bring one out for the stream. I do like sharpen it though. I hate the pre-sharpness of it. I don't like it. And I'm using a Blackwing sharpener. It's a 2-point, so it's an automatic long point. The first hole is to shave away the wood, and you'll see what that looks like. And then the second shaves at the actual graphite part. See how it kind of leaves this like weird extended tip, and then you shave it down in the second hole. And it should create a nice long, sharp point pencil like that. Okay, that's what we're gonna be working on. Okay, and for the actual piece, I'm thinking like Final Fantasy boss. I was talking in the before the stream started. I'm thinking like a Final Fantasy boss based on the concept of like a queen bee, and then I'm gonna mix it with a just really over the top decadence of swirls and filigree. That kind of borders in between Alan Williams' rendering style and Jeremy Bastian's overly swirly patterns. And I really like actually in the past few years, Amano's art, and I like how over the top and cloudy it feels, very floaty. So I want that represented in the background too. Today though, let's see here. I don't want to just free sketch because I feel like for a Twitch stream, you guys want to actually see something rendered and have like a before and after. So maybe I'll work on just this leg. I feel like I'm breaking my code of working left to right, but I actually have some lines already down for this. So maybe I'll work on that today. Because I was going to start on the left leg. Well, we'll see. We'll see where we go. I like to let my pieces kind of grow organically so I don't feel super pressured. Just to have it be like, this is the way that I draw, and I can't have any interference. So I'm just going to go for it. So if you guys have any questions while I am working, oh, you know what? I'm going to change the focus so you guys can see this better. But if you guys have any questions along the way, just please put add vonnart and let's start a discussion. I already see we got some. Freeling Hazmat says, did you do the whole art school thing? I went to school for game art and design, and my background's actually in 3D modeling with a bit of programming. So, they didn't really teach us Photoshop. They taught us like photo editing, but not really like painting in Photoshop, which I thought was interesting. But thankfully I had so many passionate friends that went to the same school that I did that they became my like pseudo instructors. They weren't really the people teaching me, but we kind of taught each other, and we would just look at YouTube videos or DeviantArt tutorials. Like honestly, that's when the internet, really like YouTube, was kind of coming into its own, and we were able to kind of dig and salvage what we could, because back in the day it wasn't as full as it is now with like tutorials and stuff. Let me see if I like that white balance. Oh, my hands look super weird on this one. There we go. Okay, that looks better. I'm going to save it. So I actually don't recommend art school. Unless if it's a school that really doesn't charge that much. I feel like I learned way more from my peers than the actual institution. So if you can find a good community of people, I feel like that is better than what you can get from the teachers at the actual institution, which sounds really weird, but it was very true for me. Let me go ahead. I'm going to have some reference right on the side here. And I always recommend working with some kind of reference. I feel like it helps build upon your pre-established visual medium and your visual eye too. So I'm going to have this on the side. Okay. Maria says, I just got accepted into Indiana Comic-Con. Hey, congrats. Are you going to be there? I will not, unfortunately. I actually did not sign up in time. And that's okay, because I'm going to try to have less counts. But I'm really excited that you were able to get in. It's a good show. Sammy says, did I miss your whole chat about the Fantastic Workshop? I missed last week's stream. Yes. So if you want to, I mean, it's still saved on Twitch. I might upload that one to YouTube. I feel like a lot of good was discussed in that. So actually, maybe I will upload that one to YouTube. I'm trying to be a little more decisive about which ones I upload to YouTube. Because if they were just kind of like a fun whatever stream, then I don't necessarily think they need to be on the YouTube channel. But if I feel like there was actually some good learning or something, a good discussion was had between us, I think that can be shared. Well, I thank you, Freeling Hazmat, for following. Eric says, which Final Fantasy are we talking about? All of them. I really, it's funny. As a kid, I hated the art of Amano, probably because I was just ignorant. But I liked the styles way more of Tetsuya Nomura, who did the concept art basically of the characters from Final Fantasy VII and beyond, and then became the director of like 15 and is now the director of Kingdom Hearts 3. So he's definitely made an established career for himself, and I'm really proud of him because he's definitely had an influence on my life. But I always compared the two of them because they were like the two big art people at the time at Square Enix. I mean, now you got like Akihito and Yoshida. Or no. Oh, who was the other artist? Oh, that makes me so upset I can't remember. But there's two now other artists that are really known. You can look at like the new Tactics art book or the Final Fantasy XIV art book that very much has a lot of contributions by one of the artists, and their art style has really influenced how it looks nowadays, which I'm totally okay with because it's gorgeous. But anyways, I'm trying to reference more of the older ones, surprisingly, because I think I'm so inspired now by this like very surreal fantasy look, and I feel like the older games really had that in their concept art. Lufa says, Tim, you have already talked about how important it is to value our work and give it the price it deserves, but when you are starting new in the art world and people barely purchase your art, sometimes you have to sell it cheaper if you want to make some money. I'm in that stage. Did you have to sell your art cheaper too when you started out as an independent artist? I did, and I think part of it was I didn't know my own worth, and the other part was I don't think I was technically strong enough to justify a higher price tag. And I've gotten in a lot of discussions with other artists. Why, thank you, Creative Achievement, for following. I've gotten into a lot of discussions with other artists about this because it becomes that age-old thing of like, well, when do I raise my price? How do I know I'm good enough? That's like the question I usually hear, especially from younger artists. How do I know? And you don't. Unfortunately, I kind of just went out on a whim during a con, and I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to make my prices this expensive. And then with my large ones that I had gold to, I was very nervous about making them more expensive. I really didn't think people would buy them at that price, and I was undervaluing myself. But I believed in it enough to actually go through with it, obviously. So when I went to the show, I didn't know what exactly to expect. But then when it started actually working out and people were buying it at the higher price, I realized since I gave off the impression that I valued my work, other people started to value it as well. And since then, I've really learned to appreciate that mentality of you have to be the first one to respect your work for other people to respect it. But I did have a good 3 years where I feel like I was underselling my work quite a bit. I hate the way that I'm making these swirls right now, so I'm just gonna erase them. Beauty of a pencil. I did actually, I can show you guys. I started my Hallow Queen in October, but I actually didn't like how it turned out. I mean, there's some fun swirls going on in here, but it felt underwhelming for what I wanted. And I just knew that I could do more with it. Oops. Turn this off. There we go. Okay. Suzanne says, "Hi, not to get notifications from my phone this time, but thankfully did not miss much." Well, hey, Suzanne. Yeah, no, we just started. Frowling says, "Oh, I'm a 3D modeler." Hey, well, I enjoyed 3D modeling. Actually taught me a lot about like occlusion shadows and all that kind of stuff, which I do still use in my art a lot because it taught me a lot about values and placement and stuff. So you need to create this like swirl movement. And I think that's where I got lost in the first piece, was that swirl movement was kind of lost. Will I play Kingdom Hearts 3 when it releases? Absolutely. I'm actually playing through the first one again right now, low key. At night, I'll usually do like an hour's worth. And I really haven't beat the game since I was a kid, so it's interesting playing as an adult. You definitely see more of like the level design aspects behind it and like the decisions that were made on that end. But I'm totally okay with that. I still think there's just a beauty with Kingdom Hearts that's undervalued. I know the story's gotten a little out of hand, and I do agree that I do think it's a little nuts at this point. But I still think it's a fun game. Oh, I actually did see some movies over the weekend. I saw the new Wreck-It Ralph, and I saw, what was it? The new Fantastic Beasts movie. And Wreck-It Ralph felt very heavy-handed in terms of the message they were trying to say. It was actually a little distracting, honestly, from the movie experience. I felt like the character, it didn't fit for me with the characters, and I don't know, I guess I just didn't enjoy it as much as I loved the first one. I think the first one was much better. And then for Fantastic Beasts, that was another interesting one where it was very divisive, where I feel like people either hated it or they thought it was different. They didn't really necessarily say it was good. In the reviews that I keep watching about it, no one will say like it's good. They'll just say it's different. But most people just hated it. I'm on the fence of I thought it was different. I don't necessarily would say that I really liked it, but I don't think I hated it as much as a lot of people did. So I won't get too much into the movie talk because I know I can get sucked into that. But I always think that if I wasn't an artist, I'd be a film critic. Just because I love film so much. I try to watch a new movie every day. But actually, recently, I don't know if any of you guys have watched on Netflix American Vandal. I think it's so funny. I think it probably just plays on the fact that I love mockumentaries, and the fact that this one is just edited so well. It takes you a little bit. Like the first episode, you're kind of like, is this really smart or is this really dumb? Like really dumb. And then by like the third episode, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is just really well crafted, but it's layered in this like very dumb coat of paint. I don't know. I think it's really fun. Like the first, it's all about like figuring out who done it. It's like a big who done it, but it's edited in such a, like a professional way. But then the subject matter and commentary is on like who drew a bunch of explicits on all the cars in a parking lot in the teacher's parking zone. And it's at a school, so they're like interviewing students and the faculty. It surprised me with how much I liked it. So if that seems to be like your genre or your type of humor, I would at least check it out. Give it more than the first episode, because the first episode you're like, wait, is this serious or what's going on right now? It's gonna be weird rendering this leg right now because everything's so loose that I feel like I'm making very definite decisions on how I want this to look. But like I said, I kind of want this to grow more organically, so I'm not going to try to force it too much. Like this feels a little forced right here. So I'm going to just kind of go through it, and if I see an area that I think could be shaded, I'll shade it. Otherwise, I'm just going to kind of run with it and see how it goes. Sammy says, "Oh, I saw Bohemian Rhapsody over the weekend. It was excellent. Highly recommend. I definitely want to see it. I think I'm gonna wait for Sean to get home, and then we're gonna go see it." I think part of the problem right now is I'm trying to do like fine rendering at this stage, and it really doesn't call for that. I'm going to break this tip actually and work with more of a flatter edge, because I tend to be way more loose and free if I'm not working with like a very sharp point. I'm going to dull this a little bit here. While I'm doing that, let me look at some more questions here. Maria says, "I'd love there to be a convention booth tips page in this Discord sometimes where you share your setup and supplies. I'm looking to up my booth game this coming year, and it's hard to find specific tips online." I can definitely do that. I have noticed a lot of people messaging me, though, of like people copying my booth, and it's been really interesting. A few people in particular, yeah, when I look at them, like, yeah, I can definitely see the influence, but I always take it as a compliment, and for me, it's like, I must be doing something that feels good enough for someone else to want to copy. And then it's like, okay, then I need to continue upping my game. So I always feel like it's a good push when someone is trying to copy you, because that means that they think that they look up to you enough where they think you're doing something right. And my friend Pete, if you guys know Pete Moorbacher of Angelarium, I talked to him about this because he has a lot of people that copy his booth setup and even his style, honestly. And I asked him about it, like, now that I'm starting to enter this weird zone where people are kind of copying what I'm doing, he said it was really interesting. He had like no fear. He was like, "Tim, you know why I'm never stressed about it?" And I was like, "Why?" He's like, "Because you just gotta be better. As long as you're always pushing and striving to be better, there's nothing to fear." So I thought that was some good advice that I think more artists need to hear, especially ones that are afraid of like people stealing their style. You're gonna always be growing as an artist, and if your art style is the same for like the 50 years that you're doing art, or however long that you stay alive for, then something went wrong. It's like you plateaued, and then you just kind of rode on that wave for as long as you could until you died. And if that's what happens to me, I feel like I failed as an artist, because as an artist, I want to continue pushing myself. And I think even with like the collector drawing that I'm doing, or even with this one, I'm like trying to do something bigger, bolder, a little more aggressive in terms of the technical handling. And that's why I would have no problem giving tips on like setup and how I do things. and hopefully it'll help you guys out more. So yeah. Okay, so I'm going to actually throw in some of these little honeycomb designs. Might as well throw in some, like, allude to the honeybee look here. Because I really want there to be more like organic filigree. I feel like when I edge it out with line art, it just feels so sterile in a way. And I want this to feel way more organic and flowy and not so pre-processed and thought out, which admittedly can be a problem for myself. I feel like when I overplan, that's when my drawings do feel even more stiff. Because the pose usually is very stiff. So I have to like balance it very carefully with how I render it. Otherwise, it'll just read as very, I don't want to just say stiff. Just, it doesn't feel like it has a lot of life or energy. And I don't believe that art needs to be like dynamic or shot at weird perspectives to have a dynamicism to it. I think you can look at a lot of artists like Rockwell or the masters back in the Renaissance. They had very, very still poses, but the way that they were positioned and their hand position, it all kind of told a story, and it led your eye through the piece without being like action sword, action. Oh man, now all my words. Action sword towards the camera. My arm way in the back. We got some foreshortening going on. He's jumping over a fire. You know, it's like very obvious cues to where they want the viewer to look at. And while I do respect it, I mean, don't get me wrong, League of Legends, I think, has some of the best art in the industry today, and it's very much leading the viewer's eye exactly where they want you to look. But I also think there's something to be said about art that is more quiet, but it's very loud when you start to really like look through it. And I've always liked my art being described as something like that, where the viewer can look through the piece and find new things the more that they look at it. And I feel like that's my strength in my art, and I don't want to lose that, but I also want to improve upon it. I don't want to just settle for where I'm at. I want to like keep pushing and like, okay, what happens when I shade it like this? Or if I don't have such an obvious outline, or what if I create more of a 3D appearance to it? So we'll see. Like, I'm kind of liking how this is looking, more flowy. Let's see here. Tigil I'm missing. Tigil says, we're currently in the process of changing a bunch of stuff in the Discord. We have a mod meeting soon. I'll suggest this. Yeah, this is a great idea to have like a convention tips, or like if you want to like post your booth and get feedback online. I think that's a great idea to put in the Discord. Actually, Tigil, could we mark that down as something we'll for sure add? And then we'll talk about it on the meeting on Sunday. Because I really am going to be making quite a different effort in the next coming year of being more attached to my Discord and community. I realize how much you guys are a part of my life, and when my life becomes too busy, I tend to like push any kind of communication with people outside of my secular like family and friends. And I'm realizing that's actually not a very good thing to do. And I need to be giving myself more time. I shouldn't be overworking myself to the point that I don't enjoy what I'm doing anymore. But the one thing that's been consistent is I always loved drawing. And I'm realizing that's what I got to get myself to the point of doing more. It's not like making the most money is successful. I made a good chunk of money this year, but I really feel like my most success was found in the pieces where I really feel like I put a lot of my heart into them. And I want to have more of those experiences next year. I don't care if I make $300,000. I don't care if I can buy a bigger house. I don't want a bigger house. I don't want more money. I'm very content with what I have, and I love the friends and family I have. The only thing I was missing this year was just time to create more. And I'm learning that was a big thing for me that I need in my life to feel sane. So, yeah, I am definitely going to be way more active on Discord. I'm going to be sharing a lot more progress pictures. I'm going to be talking with you guys, sharing advice. So, yeah, thanks for anyone that joined the Discord. Hey, Hemlock. How's it going? I'm doing actually really good. Now that the con season's over and I can work on these bigger pieces, I just feel right at home. Like this is where I should have been all along. Hey, Felipe Colombari for following. Because I know that even with like Patreon, there's so much more I can do with it, but a lot of it has to come down to me actually being at my desk, editing things, drawing more, showing more in progress stuff. And a lot of that comes with just not overbooking myself and not being on the road constantly. And that's why I'm going to be devoting a lot more of myself next year, especially to Patreon. So if you guys have a Patreon, I'm sure you already know what that's like, where you feel like you're promising a lot, and there's times where you feel like you're under delivering. I know I felt that, and when I went to this workshop last weekend, a lot of artists were feeling the same thing. Expect even the ones that you wouldn't expect, the ones that have like a lot of Patreon backers, but they definitely feel the stress and pressure of constantly having to post things out. And I'm learning how I can restructure it without feeling super overstressed. And I'll share that with you guys. I think it's good for me then to share what I learn and pass it down to you guys, because then I can learn then from you as well. It's like, it's not, I don't want to call it symbiotic. There's another word. Reciprocal. Is that it? Reciprocal? This is why I'm an artist. I'm not the best with words. I'm looking for my little circle maker. Oh no! Another reason I need to be home more so I can be more organized, so I know where things like my circle maker are. I guess I'll just work with the circle we have here. And whenever I find my circle maker, I'll make it pristine and perfect looking. So something I like to leave negative space in my art a lot. I think it like allows the viewer to fill in the gaps on their own. Let me refocus the camera really quick. Actually, I really should just set this to autofocus. Let me do that. Can I make it worse or better? It's like, it focuses perfect for a second and then it like backs up. Alright, I'll manually focus for this one. There we go. Okay. So anyways, yeah, I'm going to be passing down anything I learn, and we'll have like a back and forth. Because I think I do want to be a part of a community where we're sharing what we're learning with each other. And as artists, I know that feeling of like no one understands me. There's no one in my area that is also an artist. That was like my whole life growing up. I was the only artist really in my school, in my high school. And everyone kind of knew me as the artist. And as much as I think that was good, because then it fueled me of like, this is what I am, this is what I need to be doing. I didn't really have a lot of people to like reciprocate that passion or just want to like go to a coffee shop and draw. And I'm learning how important that is as I get older, because those people, those art friends that you'll make, those are the ones that will really push you and that can tell you like constructive feedback when you go to like a non-art person. They might be able to tell like the proportions are off or like something looks off, but they might not be able to verbalize exactly what's wrong with it. But if you have an art person look at it, they can probably better give you a constructive feedback that's more technical based and give you a more kind of like solid understanding of like where to go or where to take it to improve upon it. So with this leg, I guess I should explain a little bit of what I'm doing. I'm essentially laying out some, not super rough, I would just say still light lines that could define what these like swirl patterns are. They're light enough to erase, but they're also heavy enough where if I wanted to like confirm and lock them in, I could do so with a darker pencil and it'd be really easy to do that. So you know what, I might even work a little faster here, give more like swirl pattern. I thought I was going to do more detailing on the stream today, but I feel like it's more important that I have a better foundation to build up from rather than start outlining and finalizing things at this stage. And plus it's more fun to be more fluid. So I want like the filigree, this organic weird pattern to wrap around the sphere. Tijal says, yes, I'm creating a Google Doc to keep track of everything. Awesome. Thank you, Tijal. Fem says, the shape reminds me a lot of calla lily. You'll have to send me a reference. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Fairwald Gaming says, hi, big fan. Always love your drawing and a lot of inspiration from your skills and techniques in my own work. Oh, and draw a lot of... Well, thank you. I'm glad that my work can do that for you. Tim getting organized is funny. Actually, you'd be pretty impressed with my house. Me and Josh have been going a room a day, and the whole upstairs looks completely different. I'll share a video of it tonight on my Instagram. It literally has never looked better the entire time that I've lived here, all 4 years. It just feels so warm and homey. I can't wait to draw in that room. Adrian says, can I talk about the workshop? I talked pretty much the entire time about the workshop in my last Twitch stream, which you can watch, but I guess the things that I found most important were a lot of people talked about mindfulness and just being very aware of where your time goes, the people in your life, make sure you take care of them. Those relationships are what you want to cater to, and if they can't understand your passion for drawing or painting or whatever medium it is you're working as an artist, they probably aren't a good fit for you. And I'm talking more of like relationships. But then even with friendships, I've learned that I'm not just discrediting people anymore if they're not an artist. For the longest time, I think I had this weird notion of if you're not an artist, I can't be like really good friends with you because I want to be around people that share that similar passion. I still believe that in the regard of like being around people with a passion because it will inspire you. I still fully believe that. But I've learned that you can take away a lot from someone that isn't an artist because they see the world differently, and anyone can be an inspiration and you can learn a life lesson from. It's not just the people that are, drawing or painting every day that are going to be like your biggest inspirations. So I guess that was just one of the notes of the workshop. There was a lot of business talk, a lot of like know your numbers. I guess that was more from me. I kind of want to be an instructor next year because something that really wasn't talked about is to make money as an artist, you really have to know your numbers. And you have to know, like, what's your profit margin? What is a profit margin? A lot of artists don't even know what that means. And if you're going to be doing conventions or you're going to be doing sales online, you're going to be doing all these things, you really should know at least the bare minimum, because I know business talk is super boring, so I'm not going to bore you guys with it. But a lot of us just don't want to hear it, and I totally get that. But if you at least can understand the basics of like, if my print sells for $15, how much did I actually make of that $15? Then you take into account the paper, the ink. Usually there's like a sleeve, or if you give them a business card, you have to deduct all of that. And usually it's cheap. Usually it might end up being like around $2. But then let's say you're selling like let's say, just for numbers wise, let's say you're selling like 100 at every show, and you find a way to make your ink or paper costs down to, instead of $2, let's say it's 1. Let's say you cut it in half. That means if you're selling 100 prints per show and you just saved $1 per print, do you know what that means? You just made an extra $100 by being smarter with your profit margins and like where you're getting your resources. And usually, I mean, you always hear people talk about like buying in bulk, and that's why, because then you can save a lot of money. And that's something that I just don't think is really discussed much in the art world, because I don't think a lot of artists want to talk about it. And I totally get it, but I want to be like one of those instructors that just like, what if we sit down for an hour? Like, let me sit with you for an hour. We'll get this over with, and then you can go back to drawing, you know? So we'll see. I'll talk to Pete. A part of me also likes being just a student, though. So I don't know. Well, I don't know, actually. The more that I'm talking about it, I kind of like going without an agenda and just be an open book to learning. Because I like being the student. And I'm sure a lot of you, too, were... Like, I was always the one in the front of my class. I had my notebook open. I took notes. At least for the classes that I cared about. I don't want to say I was a perfect student, because if it was, like, history or English, I just admittedly kind of checked out. I don't want to pretend like I was all about it. No, I wasn't really present. Those are the classes I'd be in the back drawing something in my sketchbook, I'm sure. So this is kind of an interesting situation, because I have these two kind of off swirls coming off of like a larger object. This one I actually don't like at all. But the reason that I think it almost works is because we have this much longer stretch pulled one above it. And these two complement one another. Then we get like a size relation. And that's something also I've been learning in the past year, is how things work near each other may work better or worse depending on what the shape languages are. Oops, excuse me. And in this case, this really long stretch version gives such like a slimming, elegant feel, where the short and stubby one kind of makes it feel cramped and tight. But when they're next to each other, it creates this balance. I still think I'll probably edit this to be a little longer, just because I don't like how short it is. It really does feel kind of stubby. So maybe if we... like that feels better. Oh, you know what? I'm going to turn my heater off so you guys don't have to hear that in the background. Let me be right back. Oops. I'll fix that. One of my light poles fell on me here. Oh, you know what I found on the floor, though? I found some more references for... I forgot that I brought these down. Obvious one, Brahm. You can see like my little proof that I'm a good student. I like tab books. And sometimes I'll like make notes of what I like about them. So like on this page I wrote, I really like the blue inclusion. So you can see how it has the blue arms. Oh, and he signed it. What a champ. He is someone that also kind of works in a very static pose. And I think that's why I relate a lot to like him and Norman Rockwell. It's because he has so much energy and power, but they could be just a figure standing still. And I try to work for that. The other one are 120 fashion designs over the 50 years of 1900 to 1950. So this is another good example of where you might get inspiration from things that aren't necessarily like art of books, you know? And these, like, look at the shape language in a lot of these. These are great like character designs. And I think a lot of artists don't see how inspiring the fashion world can be to our art. Like, look at this. Like, you could see this on a fantasy character if you just put a different context and slightly more artifacting on it. But the main reason I got this book was I love the outfits of the early, or like the 1920s, kind of like the flapper era. And I mean, they had some really interesting designs on their characters. But like, look at this. This is just a wedding gown, but like, look at that veil. That's a really interesting, very fantasy-related veil. And this dress, like, look at the way that it's embellished, and it has like the little filigree along the edges of the sleeves, and then it's draped. You know, like, this is where I can get a lot of inspiration on shape language. I think too many younger artists, especially when I see their concepts, they're very much just like copying things that they already like in games, and they're not looking outside of that to be inspired from, and that's why their art never really stands out to me. You got to get inspired by like a bunch of different areas in life and then bring it together and Frankenstein it on your own. That's where you'll create art that's really spectacular and unique, in my opinion, because I know art's subjective, taste, blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's see here. Oh, good. Fem sent me what she was talking about. Oh, okay. Yeah, these are gorgeous. Yeah, something else I think, you know what, next week I'll do it. I'll do a stream on like taking a leaf and turning that into a character, looking at a flower, turning that into a character. There's so much that we can take from nature, and then how easy it is to manipulate it to kind of become a concept piece. It's so easy. And you know what, that'll be the stream for next week, because I think that'll be a fun one too. I'll draw like some woodland creatures with like bark horns and stuff. Who doesn't like that, right? If you're a fantasy artist, I feel like that's everyone's like, yeah, like I can get behind that. Actually, I'm gonna move my mouse over here. People ask what I do for a living. I'm always afraid of their reaction when I say artist. I wouldn't. I don't think you have anything to be ashamed of. Yeah, I don't know. If you do feel that way, I guess don't. Take pride in what you do. If you believe in yourself, others will too. So like if you say, yeah, I'm an artist, you know, like then the reaction you'll garner was probably like, oh, ugh, yeah, that sounds kind of horrible. But if you're like, yeah, I'm an artist, and like say it confidently, it changes the whole mood and template for which how they'll respond and how they'll interpret how you are an artist. A lot of how the world works is perception. And when you start to believe that your stuff is worthwhile, others will too, even if it's like horrible. And I think, once again, art's perspectives and blah, blah, horrible, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, if you look at someone like Banksy and watch his movie, and there's another artist that I read about, I forgot what his name was, or her, it was a girl. She basically would like fraud art and then sell it to museums at a really high cost. And she would even talk about like in the behind the scenes, like, this isn't real art. This is literally garbage that I found, and I'm going to sell it to them because they're dumb. And it's an interesting look at how the art world is so much about perception and the meaning behind pieces. So if you start to say that you're an artist confidently, other people will believe in what you're doing with you. And then you'll start to believe it, and I feel like you'll become more confident as well the more that you do that. Adrian says, sorry I missed the stream. I'll definitely watch it for more details. Please do, because there was a lot that I discussed in that one. Suzanne says, I would gladly listen to tips and tricks. These are all parts of being a self-employed artist, and all self-employment have their darker side, the boring side, but I realized it many times that it can be nice to talk about them, even if you are only venting. But tips and tricks, even better. Agreed. Even things like how to start an LLC if you want to become a legit business practice and you want to start hiring people, you have to have some kind of a business license if you're going to be paying people more than $600. And when that happens pretty quick, I caught myself where I realized next year, January 1st, I'm setting up an LLC because I'm hiring Kat to go to all these conventions for me next year, and I want her to be able to file her taxes properly too. I don't think trying to cheat the system is the way to go. I think the best way to go about being an artist and like doing your taxes and stuff is to play the game and realize that some of that money, I know a lot of it may go to like the pockets of big government people, whatever, but some of that will go to like maintaining the roads, the public schools, things that actually do help the community. So I always think of like that's where my money is going. And I think when you try to play the system too much, you can get burned. And I've known some people that have gotten audited and it just looks like a nightmare. So I always recommend people just to play by the rules as much as they can. I know when you cash is such a iffy situation because it's so easy to hide the cash that you make at conventions, and that will definitely fall on you on how you like to handle it. But I think it's good to at least acknowledge that conventions can make you a lot of money, but you also have to be careful and protect yourself along the way. Oh, great. Tijel got a clip of it. That was pretty good. Zungo says, so I'm kind of excited about next week's stream. I need it so much. Yeah, you know what? It's so fun for me to draw stuff like that'll be just a good stream all around. Okay, so I kind of like the flow that we got going here. I have about an hour left of the stream. You know what I might do for you guys? I'm going to switch to a darker pencil and just give you a preview of how I would render this darker. So let's see here. I'm going to switch, because currently I'm using a 6H, which is a really, really light pencil. So I'm going to switch to, let's do an H. So an H is still on the hard scale, not on the bold, as I like to call it, scale. So as I'm pushing, it probably will still be kind of light. But I'm going to build it up a little bit because then eventually I'm going to work with like a 6B or like a really dark pencil and just pop those values as much as possible. So even when I'm going through, I'm like, oops, you can't even see it. Such a typical stream thing. And you're like, oh, and here's what I'm doing. Look how intricately I'm decorating this filigree part. And it's off camera. I know Key's worse than I am, though. Like, half the time, her drawing is not even on the camera. At least when she's working traditional. Obviously, digital, she's way better at controlling that. Suzanne says, that is the same I am telling people as well. In Hungary, the corruption is very high, and many, many people try to go around the law with black working. You have to pay monthly taxes even as a beginner, so now no taxing based on income. But because of it, the NAV finds you, and that can end very badly. Oh, that sounds awful. Yeah, sorry to hear that. Maria says, I really want to go to Fantastic Workshop next year, as I'll be done with college then. Since you know my work, would you recommend it? Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The thing is, like, this workshop's interesting because it's not like a technical based workshop. You don't go there to increase your skills. You go there to learn how to make money as an artist, essentially. And this year was definitely more on like being mindful, which I think just because where Pete and Sam are in, they're the ones that host it. I feel like they're definitely more present with that stuff going on in their life right now and how that has affected them, where they're not as focused on like, how do I make sure I can make enough money to sustain myself financially this year. I feel like they kind of already got that locked down. But when I go to these shows, I meet a lot of people that don't have that yet, and I try to help them in any way I can. So I explain like how I make my money at cons, where I get my books made, where do I print my stuff, where do I get my printer, things of that nature. And a lot of them are usually really talented, but they just are very new to the making money part of the art world. So I think collectively everyone there just wants to learn those skills, and you, for the most part, you do, because you can pull any of the instructors aside at any point in the weekend that a lecture isn't going on. You can just ask them questions about it. I know last year I asked Vicki Williams, who's Alan Williams' wife, a lot about tax tips. Like I feel like I'm the weirdo that goes to these cons because I'm not very emotional based with my questions for these type of workshops. Like a lot of people will be like, how can I motivate myself when I'm just, feeling kind of down? And meanwhile, I'm in the corner being like, what's the benefits of hiring someone as a contractor versus an employee if I'm an LLC? Like questions that I think have very factual answers, but I just need to hear it from someone that has been through the process and knows the answers to these questions. And that's why I like going to them. And Maria, with you, I feel like you're definitely good enough to start making money as an artist. And it's just like taking those next steps to really explore where your revenue streams can be. Because then they usually have someone that's like popular on Twitch, someone that is really good with the con scene, someone that's really good. They have like different, or someone that's really good with galleries. So they have like a bunch of people that make their money in all these different facets of potential ways to make money as an artist. And it's kind of up to you then to go up to them and actually start the dialogue or the conversation about whatever it is that you're interested in. That's the one thing I do see a lot of people miss out on, is they expect people to come up to them. You got to be the person that goes up and asks them questions, because the ones that are really striving for the answers, they're going to be the ones that are sitting right next to them. They're going to be constantly asking them questions because they are paid to be there to answer questions. So take advantage of it. Hey, Caroline says, how do you handle your sales tax when you go to conventions in several states? So some states are a little more lenient than others. Some of them, like, you'll literally get something in the mail. And me and Key have done this before, where we'll just knock it out in a day. Like, look at what you owe them, send it to them. And it's weird. Like, a few years ago, this was not a thing at all. Like, states didn't really care. But I think now that conventions are kind of gaining some steam, I think they're like, wait, we can make money? Or like, these people are making how much money? Wait a minute, we need to tax them. So I think they've been a little more heavy-handed with catching people at cons and making sure that they get their sales tax for the state. And it can be kind of annoying, so I'm not going to pretend like it's not. That's why, like, yeah, conventions seem really glamorous, but they don't. A lot of people don't see the back end work, and the back end work is kind of awful at times. I don't want to sugarcoat it. It can be awful. Like signing up for them 6 months in advance, knowing when the sign up is, checking it to make sure that they haven't moved the date. Thankfully, I have like a lot of art friends that we kind of do this together, so we're able to share that information. And like one person may find out that a convention opened, and then they'll let all of us know. And that's something that I think is good for every artist to like build up a small community of like-minded artists that want to, be involved with what you're passionate about. And like for me, it was convention, so I found a lot of people that shared that same passion. But like I said at the beginning of the stream, like my new passion is just drawing more. I want to be on the road less, and I want to be drawing more. And I still want to go to like the big 6 shows, as I've been calling them. And those are the shows I just genuinely enjoy being at. So I think those I'll always, still go to. Man, this is creating such an interesting look already. I'm really liking this, guys. I like this weird negative space here, too. It's like the opening of this whole leg, and it's just this void of white. I guess the more that if you guys come to my streams, you'll see that I love playing with negative space and letting the viewer kind of interpret why I put it there. And are you ready for this really deep reasoning why? There is none. No reason. I just like how it looks visually. Oh yeah, I'm with Mr. Postman. Says, any tips for coming up with original ideas for drawing? Literally take things that happen in your life and then apply it to a drawing. What was something that... so like, I'm getting my chimney sweep soon. And I've really wanted to use this fireplace that's in my house for a long time, but I've never been able to because it's all clogged and gross. So the bill is going to be, they said, around $250. So then in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, that's a good chunk of money. Like, I would rather just not pay this out of pocket right away. So instead, I was like, well, I'm going to draw a chimney sweep character. And the more that I thought about it, I was like, okay, I'm going to draw this chimney sweep character. I'm going to sell the original drawing for $250 because then that will pay for the chimney cleaning. And the more that I started thinking about it, the more this character started to come to life. And I was like, well, what if they do have a chimney sweep, but they're actually like a mage. They're like a dark mage, and they summon this like charcoal demon that eats the ash of which is like layered on the inside of a fireplace. So he summons this demon, and the demon just gnarls and eats it as it goes up and down the chute, and like that's how he actually cleans the chimney. But that idea would have never came to me if I didn't think of, or if I didn't need to get this chimney swept. And the idea is I don't think I would have allowed to just, flood in. So it's something that I've heard all my life from artists that are higher up, but the whole idea of like taking inspiration from the world around you as is and then pulling it into your drawings. And I'm realizing now more than ever that it just creates, in my opinion, better art. I think it's art that really reflects on the artist, and the artist seems to have fun with it. They're playing with something that is relative to something that's going on to them, and it doesn't always have to be sad. I think a lot of artists think that has to be like this melancholy, woe is me type art. And yes, it is in that boat, but there's more to life than just feeling sad all the time. And I think it is good to feel sad at certain points when it is required. I think like after breakups or someone dies, like things that are very sad. And like mourning is a process that I think is necessary, and it's a necessary part of life. But for that to be the only thing you're known for, I think is, I'll just say silly. I think there's more to life than just feeling sad all the time. And yeah, there was a point in my life where all my art did kind of feel melancholy and sad, and I think a lot of people may have related to it because they were also feeling melancholy and sad. But now that I'm working on things like this is a concept that I'm so intrigued and curious by. And the night that I was doing my initial sketch, I was like looking up the roles of a queen bee in the colony. How long do they live for? What do they do? And I just added that, like I poured myself into the piece, and it wasn't just like I'm sad. It became I'm excited. And I think there are a lot of artists, when you look at their work, it really speaks volumes that that's what they're trying to say with their art. And it doesn't have to be like my dad died, so I'm drawing a picture of me crying. It could be I'm really excited about what I'm learning, and I'm showing that through this piece that I'm creating. And I think that's a very powerful testament to being an artist, as much as being sad. And I think I'm just saying I'm being so harsh on it because I, for a while, was just very sad, and my art, I think, reflected that. But now that I'm in a really good place in my life, I was always nervous that you can't create good art when you're not sad. And you see people like Adele who kind of makes their career off being heartbroken. And I'm realizing there is a time and a place for that, but then you also have to have the opposite too, because then you watch interviews with Adele, and she's a very lively, entertaining, lovely person, and you're realizing, okay, she's not this just one note. And yeah, she expresses herself through her music, but that's not all of who she is. She's more than just, I'll find someone like you, you know? And I think next week will be a good stream for you to come to if it's like how to come up with original ideas. I'm really going to take something I find in my backyard and be like, this is the inspiration for the drawing that we're going to make today. And I'll show you how I turn like a piece of bark into a creature. And it's a lot of fun. I think every artist should have that kind of experiment at some point. Just find something outside and use that as your inspiration for the drawing. Luva says, well, I still live with my father and I gain 100 pounds at a con when I'm lucky, so I don't gain enough to pay taxes, and it's black working for now, but hope I can reach the professional art world soon to do things properly. I hope so too. I feel bad. I have a lot of friends in Europe where the con scene is completely different than it is in America. Where in America it's just exploding, and a lot of artists are able to essentially make their whole lifestyle revolve around it because you can make so much at these cons. And people are willing to pay big bucks for big prints, big books, big everything. And then when I went to Belgium for FAX, it was like the smaller items did better. Books did phenomenal, but like large prints did not do well, which is kind of what a lot of my friends and I carry our weight on in terms of making a profit. So I can only imagine how that might be for someone that lives over there trying to do all these different cons, because it's not only like the country that you're in, but having to work in a different country for a con, you have to fill out a lot more paperwork, and there's a lot more to it. Where in America, you can kind of, for the most part, go from state to state and not have to worry about it. There are some states that are way more strict, like Utah, but Utah is just an interesting state. I'll just say that. Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, so now that this leg, and actually, you know what's funny? I like having a monitor on the side here, because when you're looking at a really big drawing and you're working on it, oftentimes you zone in and you become kind of tunnel vision to what you're working on. But when you have a monitor on the second screen that kind of shows the whole composition, it's very easy to see like where are my values working, where are they not working, and then edit on the fly. So I actually do like having this kind of ability to then look at my second monitor, like, oh no, those values definitely are not working there. Or like, I kind of am intrigued by what's going on over there. It was unintentional, but let me develop on that further. Like, that's kind of interesting. You know what? I think I'm going to work a little more on the left side as well. I'll use that 4H pencil. No, I won't. I'm going to use a 6H. When I look at it like this sharp point, I don't feel like breaking it right now. I'd rather work with a 6H because it has a dull edge and one that I know I can comfortably work with at the moment. Oh, hey. Zimmy. How you doing? Tijol says, ugh, tell me about it. We had to cancel FAX next year because they jacked up the price way too much. Oh, that's horrible. You mean like the price for the booth or the price for attendance, or what do you mean? That's awful. Oh, I know it's you, Brandon. You don't have to say that. I still remember Zizimi. I am noticing this leg does feel it's not centered, which would be a problem. This is another thing I have a problem with was I like to render very early in the stage of drawing. But as I'm looking at this as a whole, one of the legs may not be, hold on, let me move this like here. It's like here's her head. And then I want this to be very centered, but I feel like the leg right now, hold on, I'll move all this aside. So if I were to put this directly in the center, you can see how this leg bends in more. This one's more straight. So I might have to do some editing really quick. Yeah. Which I definitely can do. Because that's another thing that I believe in a lot is as an artist, you got to be willing to edit on the fly and never be satisfied with something if you know it looks wrong. Alright, I'll do more of the editing on the bottom later. I'll focus more on the top part here. Mate Magic. Wait, I think you were on my... Oh, no, you were. Matisse. See, it takes me like 3 times. Matisse. Hey, I'm in my last year of high school. Currently, I'm doing science, but I also really like to draw. My parents think I'm good enough for both, but I don't want to choose. Unfortunately, I will have to at the end of my school year. Any tips? Woo! So, that's a loaded question. My answer to that is a simple one, and it's not really an answer. It's kind of, I'll just say it. Trust your gut. What is your instincts telling you? And really, when you're in bed at night, really talk with yourself of what will I regret if I don't follow through with it? You never want to be going through life wondering what if. And you hear a lot of people that unfortunately go through that dilemma. And I never want that to be a scenario for anyone, actually. I think that's a horrible way to live. And I think that can be very sad. So my advice to you is really dig deep within yourself and ask, what do I want to do? What am I more passionate about between these two sets of career paths? I'm looking at my old drawing of my Hallow Queen because I liked how I did the leg filigree. Actually, this is a good example too for the last question, or knowing if you don't like how something looks, editing it right then and there, because there's no point in moving forward with a drawing that you actually don't like. That's and I like to keep my mark making very light. And actually, I'm going to stand up and look at this. So something new I've been trying recently is standing up while I'm drawing. And this helped me so much when I was doing the preliminary sketch of this particular piece, actually, that I went and on Cyber Monday, I got a standing easel so I can draw on. Doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to fully enjoy it, but I like to trust my gut instinct. Kind of like what I was just saying to Matisse. So I bought it and I'm going to set it up upstairs and see if I like working that way. Let's see, this one's more higher up. Sometimes, and my high school teacher always talked about this, is having more free lines in the beginning can be so much better than trying to force free lines near the end. which is advice that I never really took. But now that I'm a little older and a little wiser, I'm realizing how much that actually is true. And like holding the pencil closer to the bottom is something that my roommate Key has been really pushing. So I'm trying to do that a bit more as well. Let's see here. So then I want these like forms to wrap around these blank spheres. And you can kind of see it here. Is the autofocus still on? Sometimes this camera, I don't know. You know what? I actually don't like the sphere here. I think I'm gonna add some like ornate design on either side, and then this can be just these chains that droop. Oh, maybe it goes like up the side of her body. Oh, that might be kind of interesting. Hold on, let me see what that looks like. These are all like jewels, but it kind of gives the impression of like the thorax and how it like bends. Well, I guess this is more almost like a reptile, but I guess some insects have it, like a millipede or centipede. I really should look at like how the bee. Well, I guess no, the bee back has that kind of flexing with the scales. So maybe I'll keep this in. I mean, I kind of like it. I may change that though. Something that's fun about this stage is like you don't have to commit to anything. Where I think I see too many of my old pieces that I've done where I'll commit to something like really early. And then halfway through I'm like rendering, I'm like, why did I stick with this? And then that's usually where I'll have like that moment of like, this little looks so much better if, and then I keep rendering it because I need to finish it, but I can see what would have been better. And it's that whole hindsight complex, you know. I do want this giant butt that's behind her. This giant sphere. Here. That is definitely something I'll need my compass and circle maker to help me with. It was funny, back in like college, I would just use a bowl or whatever I could find. Which, I mean, it definitely worked, but now that I have a few more tools at my disposal, I like to be more precise. Get that nice clean edge exactly where I need it. And to be honest, sometimes I still use a bowl or whatever I can find lying around me. I don't think I'll ever fully give up that because I mean, I've had a lot of people tell me I'm a resourceful artist. I'll just take what's around me and then implement it in my drawings. Okay. I think I can sit down again. So you can kind of see what we got going on here. And something that I wanted to do with this queen in particular, and I guess I'll talk about the concept, and then I'll talk about questions because I see a lot just piling up right now. I did research on bees, and specifically queen bees, and what their role in their hive is. And I found that their main thing was to lay eggs. They lay an abundance of eggs on the daily. They create and regulate a scent that is very specific to the hive. They have apparently regality. Is that how you say it? Regal, whatever it is. You know what I'm talking about. Regality. So they have to I guess that's why in my drawing I'm going for this very over-the-top ornate decadence, because I'm trying to represent that. They are dependent on others, which is interesting. They don't clean or feed themselves. Other bees do that for them, which I found really interesting. And they are the only one, and they last about a year. And when a new queen arises, they fight and they have to kill each other, or one has to kill each other. One has to win. 2 queens enter, 1 queen leaves. And it's because there can only be 1 queen for the hive. So, since the queen bee has 6 arms, or legs, I should say, and the bottom 2 are being represented by these poles that kind of support the structure of the bee, which kind of, for me, represents the structure of the hive, each hand represents something different that the queen has to uphold. So the first one is this arm that is holding, I'm going to have it be holding this baby bee. And the arm itself, though, is going to be covered in iron, and it's going to be spiky and kind of dangerous. So it's the idea of that, yeah, the queen is technically the mother of all these bees, but it doesn't raise it with nurture. It's very much nature, where it's very, as soon as you're born, you're kind of like set to do a duty, and that's your life. So I want it represented by this arm that's very malice in the way that it looks, but then this baby bee is very innocent and cute, but it's this depiction of this motherly figure that is very cold and distant, and that was the first arm. The second one, I wanted the finger and the claw, like everything to be very aggressive looking, but very sharp and pointy, and that was to represent the battle that if another queen bee, or if another queen comes along, the queens would have to battle. And I see this as being like the thing that would slice her head off. So I want to make this arm very powerful, but very sharp and very dangerous. The third arm, where do I have it? Oh, the third arm is going to be holding this giant staff that kind of is the representation of ruling, and it's this queen bee that's in charge of the rest of the colony. And I want that to be kind of like the symbol of power. And the fourth arm is going to be the one that is creating the scent. So I had a few ideas. I've been blocking out a few that I'm not fully passionate about, but I wanted it to be like the scent is coming out of the center of the hand, and it's kind of like flowing. It's like pulling the smoke out of its own palm. So we'll see how I create that. But the other 3 arms I'm pretty for sure on. And then the 2 legs are for the structure and stability of the hive. Okay, let me get to some questions because I know I missed some here. Digital says, yeah, the booth price doubled. It still could be worth it. I don't want to push you too hard on it, but we'll talk maybe even a little bit on Sunday. But I still think it would be worth it for you to do it. Matisse is asking, let me move this really quick. Hey, I'm in my lash. Oh no, I did that one. Never mind, we're good. And be sure, if some of these I can't tell if they're questions or not, because just be sure to put @vonnart. That way I don't have to scroll too much. Brandon says, hey, by the way, I don't know if you care, but you don't have a category chosen. Oh, I forgot to do that. You know what? I really do need to make a mental... I'll not make a mental note. I'll make a physical note of it. Category for Twitch. I mean, my Twitch streams have definitely become more fun and less structured than they used to. I was very serious about them when I worked at CG Cookie. But now I'm like, you can watch me draw with me. Let's have a conversation about things. Let's talk movies. Let's talk art. But I still should be caring enough to have things like the category all set. Freeling Hazmat says, awesome stream. Are you going to be doing this next week then too? I do streams every Wednesday at 2 p.m. I may even add more time slots next year, depending on how my schedule looks. Just because if I'm going to be home more, that'll mean I'll be drawing more, and might as well be doing some streams while I'm drawing, because I enjoy doing these with you guys. I definitely feel I'm faster when I'm not streaming, because I think sometimes when I'm talking, I get carried away and I ramble, as I'm sure a lot of you know. But I do enjoy these, and I would like to stream more. So being a little more legit with my Twitch. I probably won't be working on this drawing next week. Next week I was going to be doing the stream where we take the ordinary and then turn them extraordinary, and how to take something literally from your backyard and turning it into a creature or character design. And actually, I would encourage you guys to do this with me next week. So maybe if you plan on being here next week, I challenge you to find something in your backyard, but don't take more than I almost want to say 10 minutes, but I guess if you want to have more time, whatever. Take your time if you need to, but find something in your backyard that you find inspiring and then bring it to the stream and let's draw something together. Let's just take 2 hours. It doesn't have to be a big epic. It could just be a very simple headshot of a character that may be the shape of whatever you grabbed. What if it's a rock? Or like for me, I think I'm going to pick up a piece of bark because I love drawing broken bark on creatures. But who knows? Maybe I'll find a dead flower. It's snowing out, so maybe I'll find something that is even more intriguing, like a twig. That I'm like, oh, that's a really good horn of a creature that we can dive into. So yeah, that's what I'll be working on next week. And I challenge anyone that's coming to join alongside me and draw at the same time. And then we'll share it together on the Discord. That's what I want to be doing more next year. I want to be doing more streams where we draw something together and then we'll share our results on the Discord. Like a fun weekly activity for us. Or maybe once a month we'll for sure do the draw with me type streams. Luva says, what if the scent she is holding some kind of... I don't even know how to pronounce that word. I'm going to Google this. Oh, that's a great idea. It's a thing that you always see in cathedrals that they put the incense in. You know what? I'm going to do that. Thank you for that suggestion, Luva. That's a great idea. Oh, Pro BMFK says these streams are great. I've rewatched all of them. That's so kind. Jim says, will you be attending any cons? Yes, the big 6, which I guess I should say what those are. I shouldn't just assume you guys know this thing that I just made up last weekend. The big 6 for me are Emerald City in Seattle, DragonCon in Georgia, New York City Comic Con in New York, Anime Central in Illinois, Anime Expo in California, but I didn't get in next year, so you won't see me at that one. And then lastly is Gen Con in Indiana. So those are the 6 that I plan to be at, except for, actually I should say the 5 that I do plan on being at for sure if I get in. Most of those I think I will be getting in. But those I go to. And then maybe a couple like Anna Minneapolis I might go to just because I get to see my sister because that's where she's from. And we'll see. Maybe if I'm yeah, you know what? I would want to go to that show. Then I'll go. Oh, and Spectrum. Sorry, Spectrum in Kansas City. That is one of my favorite shows. I think Gen Con beat it for my favorite show this year. So I'll be at Kansas City. Well, technically it's Planet Comic-Con now, but they partnered with Spectrum. So it'll be both of them all wrapped in one little bubble. Oh, you know what would be kind of fun? Wait, what if there were these 2 hooks on either side of the legs and then they were connected. Oh, I might like this. Hold on. Sometimes I have to play with my mark making to see if I like a new idea that just spurs in my head. There's a big maybe right now. We'll see. Freeling says, I came for the banter. Too legit to Twitch. Bye, Freeling. We'll see you later. Hey. Oops. There we go. Hey, Spectre, how are you doing? How are you? I missed your streams. Do you mind me asking a bit of your idea or inspiration of the drawing? Because it's a little bit different than your other works. Basically, I wanted to draw a queen bee. This was, I kind of mentioned at the beginning of the stream, but if you came late, this is based on Hallow Queen, which was the last prompt of this year's Drawtober list. I had this really big idea, but I ended up getting accepted into a con at like 2 weeks before the actual con date. So I had 2 weeks to set up, or I really only had like a week to set up my vonnart booth, and Drawtober got in. So Drawtober had its own booth, and I've never had a booth for Drawtober, so I had to set that all up. And that was kind of a nightmare, if I was honest with you. So the last day was supposed to be this queen bee drawing that I wanted to do, but I unfortunately could not finish it in that time because it was a lower priority than making sure the booths look good at the show. So I am doing it now, and since every day in October I did a different medium, I decided for the very last day I would come back in graphite, the thing that I think most people know me for, and really show that even though I'm having fun with all these different mediums and experimenting, graphite is where my home is, and this is where I'll continue to be. But it was good for me to explore these other mediums and figure out what they're all about and the difficulties of working with some. And it was fun in its own way, but it was also incredibly stressful. And I still look back at that month and I don't know how I got through it alive. That was a rough month. There we go. So anyways, yeah, so the prompt was Hallow Queen. So I imagine this giant queen bee that's hollow. So the inside of her, I want to be completely emptied out. And then you can kind of see in her big butt, I want there to be like a bunch of bees that travel in and out of this open chest cavity where that's where they deposit their honey, and she stores it in this giant bulb that she carries behind her. So that was kind of the story. And I guess that kind of explains why it's a bee, because I guess Hallow Queen doesn't really relate to a bee. I guess maybe the queen part, because queen bees. But I wanted to have my own little weird spin on it. And then, like I mentioned before, each arm represents something different to me, and each leg. And honestly, this is just a lot of fun. I want to have more fun with my drawings, rather than feel like obligations. Or like, I haven't posted something on Instagram, gotta whip something out really quick. As much as I think that's helpful to like grow a brand, I don't think necessarily it always creates like the most authentic art. And I can say that about myself too. I think every artist should be realistic and I guess objective when they look at their own brand and how they create their work, and what art is better than their previous works, or what art maybe is maybe not their best. I think if you become too emotional when looking at your art, you can't grow constructively because you're too attached to it, and it's hard for you to see the flaws. And that's not to say that everything you do should look at and be like, okay, now what sucks, you know? Like, I don't think that's healthy either. With everything in life, there's a balance. And I think too many artists are just a little too attached emotionally to their work to be critical of it. But the ones that I think really succeed in the art world are the ones that can very much separate themselves from their work and look at it objectively and be like, okay, where are my weaknesses? Where are my strengths? Where do I think I improved from my last drawing? Where do I think maybe I slipped? And like, let's work on that next time. That's why I love art. It's like, it's always growing. You're never just standing still. And yeah, there are times where you might plateau as an artist. I think that's very relatable and real. But that doesn't mean that you should be there for a long time. You know, I think it's a very temporary thing to feel like you plateaued. And if it becomes more long-term, I think there's actually a problem there. You don't want it to be more long-term. Tijol says, on the topic of cons, I was talking to Loesch this week, and she just did her very first con, like having her own booth. She said you're absolutely crazy for doing so many. Yeah, I think I'm crazy too. I'm out of my mind. And that's why next year I am not going to be doing as many. And I guess Loesch is a good example of like being more mindful of having a very successful brand, but not killing yourself in terms of how much work you're putting on yourself to become an established artist. I feel like she does take time for herself and her her immediate friends and family, which I think is helpful. There we go. Maria says, will you be at Amki? I didn't get into Art Alley, but I'm planning to attend. Kat will probably be running the booth, but I'll be there just to enjoy it and be with my friends. But I'll probably be drawing somewhere outside of the show. But then on like Saturday, I'll probably be there to sign stuff and I guess be more present. But I'm really like letting Kat, I'm like trusting her to run the booth by herself. And the whole goal of like having her do these shows is to let me draw more. So I want to actually do what I say. And if I'm letting her do the con, I really should be drawing more. Which is like a win-win because then she can sell new prints of things that are hopefully better. I mean, I guess that's also objective, but you would hope that with more time and technical ability and hopefully passion that the work would kind of speak for itself. Okay, I have like 10 more minutes here. So I'm going to just keep working around these two legs and then we're going to call this stream done. I might actually do some of the honeycombing on this leg here. So I'll do this down the leg and I'll answer some more questions. So if you have any questions, I would definitely put them in the chat now. That way I can definitely answer them before the stream ends. Zungo says, I love the idea for the next stream. I had a lot of problems with inspiration lately, and I love that I can really grow here and learn. It feels so warm to do it with you all here. I could not agree more. Let's totally do that then. So next week, Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Time, let's all grab an object from our backyard. Or before the stream starts, let's grab an object from our backyard, and then we'll draw it. And I think what might be kind of cool is if we each show each other. So maybe sometime in this next week, I will actually take a picture of what I found. I'll post it on the Discord channel, and then I'll encourage others to do the same. And remember, this isn't supposed to be some epic, you know, like maybe it could turn into it if like it really inspires you, but I want this to be seen as more of a practice because oftentimes when we have the mentality of like this is just a throwaway piece, there's less pressure, there's less anxiety of this has to be perfect, and you can literally just let your kind of art hand be more bold and be more intuitive than if you're overthinking everything, which I'm sure is a lot of you may struggle with, because I know I certainly do. Right? You know what? I shouldn't say I still do. I used to. I've become way better at letting things kind of grow organically and not feeling like I have to take control of how it's looking. So we'll do honeycombs down the leg. Maybe I'll lift this a bit. It's insane. She has like these really long legs. And I don't know if that cheapens it. Like there's a part of me that kind of likes it. There's a part of me that's like, eh. And when I look at my old drawing, they were much bigger honeycombs. Yeah, we'll see. I kind of like them. I kind of like the little nod to the honeycomb, but we'll see. We'll see. Oh, you can't even see it. I'm sorry. It's when these drawings are like so big and my camera's like stuck. Here, you know what? I'll turn. Nope, that won't work. You know what? I just won't work on that part of the drawing. That way we just avoid it altogether. I guess what I could do is I could start giving more shape to these arms. Jim says, I plateaued. It's been a plateau since 2012. That's not good. I guess the first sign of changing it is to recognize it. So, okay, you're past step one. The next step would be, and maybe this would actually help a lot of people. This isn't just like a jokey conversation, but like, where do you think you've plateaued in? Why do you think your art plateaued? Do you feel like you're not inspired? Do you feel like your art lacks technical depth and ability? Like where do you find your flaws in your art to make you feel like you've plateaued? And I think once you kind of like really look at the why, you can start answering how you can start to change that. But I don't think until you can answer those questions first can you find the answers to them. Tijel says, have you gotten any negative reaction on not being at your booth? I like people being disappointed for not meeting you. So when Kat goes to the shows, because she's done 2 now without me, yeah, there will definitely be a couple people that wish they would have met me. But when Kat explains like why I'm not at the cons and I want to be creating more, oftentimes they don't really care. She might lose a couple of sales, but usually people will still want to support the artist whether or not they're there. And then when they do go to a show, I feel like it's more of a, hey, they're actually going to be at the show. If we want things signed or if we want to ask them about art stuff, this would be the show to go to. So it becomes more of an event for people that, really enjoy your work. It's a very strange thing. I know I thought for sure that would hurt me a lot, but it actually hasn't, and it's given me more stability in my life. And I think people almost respect that more. They're like, I would rather him be at home creating work and feel more at peace with life than having him have to travel just so that I can come up to him and ask if I can take a picture or something, So I've seen a lot of positive comments from people. But yeah, you'll always have some that are, disappointed. And that's expected. Like I would be disappointed too if I was really excited to meet someone and they weren't there. So I totally understand that side too. So I'm not going to pretend like I don't. Spectre says, do you draw every day? If so, how much time? I'm getting in the habit, and this has actually been a really good one. I mentioned earlier that I time myself, and I do that because I recognize how much time I'm actually putting forward each day. So for sure, I'm putting at least 3 hours, because what I do is I put an hour toward the Hallow Queen, I put an hour toward my collector, and then I put an hour toward swordplay. And those are like for sure my 3 dedicated hours. And then everything outside of that could be like a warm-up drawing, which is usually like 30 minutes. Sometimes I'll record it, and those are the things you see on YouTube. Sometimes it'll just be like a random drawing. Like I feel like I just did one recently that wasn't actually... Oh, here, wait, let me grab it. Oh wait, no, this isn't it. Hold on. Like this. So this was my little boozette fan piece. But I was just really inspired. I came back from a show and I really wanted to draw this idea and concept that I had in my head. But obviously that wasn't like, a necessity. I could have been working on my Hallow Queen or the other drawings that I should be. But then, like, for my warm-up the other day, I did Nate, because that's the next character backstory I'm going to do. And I wanted to get into the habit of drawing him again. So I don't know. It kind of varies. I don't feel like being too structured is a good thing. I think art should be more of a adapting and organic experience, but I do think you should set yourself for at least a few hours a day. But for sure, I've talked to so many artists about this. There has to be like a year to 3 years where you are just killing yourself, like 8 to 10 hours a day, just drawing when you're not at work, when you're not at school. Like, that's what you're doing. And then at the workshop, I had a lot of people say that it takes about 10 years, they think, for you to become like technically savvy enough and aware to become an independent artist financially. And that, I mean, that shouldn't scare people away. I mean, if you think about it, if you start at 18 because you go to college, because anything like high school, you can kind of count, but oftentimes high school isn't as competitive and your teachers aren't maybe pushing you as hard as you could. Anyways, you start at 18 and then by like 28, you become more financially independent. And that's kind of the goal for a lot of young people. But if you're older, if you're starting like 25, that still shouldn't scare you, because then at like 35, you can be financially independent. And you might think, well, yeah, that's a lot of time, but it's like, this is the only life we have. So why not spend it doing something you actually enjoy doing? It's worth those 10 years if in the end you'll be able to be financially independent and just do what you love, which if it is drawing, that's amazing. What was the other thing I wanted to say though? Oh, I do think you should draw every day. It should be like a no-brainer that if you want to be an artist, it shouldn't even be a task. It should be a desire. It's something you need. It's like breathing. You want to draw. You would rather draw than play video games. You would rather draw than go out to the bars on the weekend. Like, this is something that is more to you than just a hobby. And that's a really important thing to recognize about yourself too. Is this a hobby, or is this something that you're actually like 100%, this is what I want to do? I see too many people that I think are hobbyists, but they think that they aren't. And they're frustrated for why they aren't financially independent yet. But in my mind, I'm like, it's because you don't dedicate the time necessary to become financially independent from just art. This isn't an easy career. And yeah, me and my friends have done it, but it took a lot of failure and a lot of learning along the way. And that's something that isn't really seen publicly. And maybe it should be more. Who knows? I really like where this is going. It's been a while since it's like since the summer since I was excited about a big drawing. I mean, my collector I'm definitely excited about, but that one is so monotonous. And that was kind of the point, was to kind of test me. I'm like, can I draw 300 hands in a single image, and push myself to make that happen? So it's happening, but yeah, it's very slow. I mean, I'm going to throw it back to you guys. How much do you guys draw a day? And do you feel like you are hitting an adequate number? Or do you feel like you are falling behind? Because I feel like you guys always ask me these questions, but like, why not throw it back and hear what you guys have to say? Because you guys are probably more in a similar situation to one another than in the situation I am, where like I live with 4 artists, and you know, we go to cons most of the year. Like, it's a very weird lifestyle. So I want to hear from you guys, like, what would you guys consider a normal amount of drawing time per day? Spectre says, thank you a lot. Well, my story, if it interests you, is that I draw about 5 to 8 hours a day, mainly studying fundamentals. I left my super comfy job, about $5K a month, a car, phone, and laptop. Left all that for art career. Age of 29, didn't draw before, and you're a big inspiration for me ever since the DeviantArt days. Oh, that's awesome. Well, I'm glad. I mean, that's great. And I honestly, like with me not going to cons so much, I think 5 to 8 hours sounds kind of right up the wheelhouse for what I'm looking to be doing at least every day. And there will be times like yesterday where I stay up till, I mean, it was like 5 a.m. It was really late. And I'm just rendering hands and I'm watching things in the background, but it's so therapeutic for me. That's why drawing never really feels like a chore unless if you make it a chore for yourself. And that could be, I mean, this is where style preference comes into play, because there have been times where I've drawn something realistically because I felt I had to, because that's what it looked like in real life. But it's only been in the last 2-3 years where I'm realizing you don't have to draw what you don't like if your style doesn't call for it. And oftentimes your style will grow because of those decisions of what do you like to draw, what do you not like to draw. And it becomes very clear and apparent of what you do and don't. And you definitely see someone's style when it starts to like really shine through, when they start shedding and cutting out all the things that don't add to their style whatsoever. Woof! Oh, a lot of you guys are answering the question. So I'm going to... Oh, I didn't realize it's already over 4. Okay. I'm going to read off all of these because you guys were kind enough to put your answer down. And we'll do a little talk, and then I'm going to go to Subway and enjoy the rest of the Wednesday, because I got to pick Sean up too. All right. Suzanne says, oh, well, thank you, the Prophet Lettuce. A little beat. I'm currently falling a bit behind. I am alone and currently a bit stuck, deciding to spend more time out and reflecting a bit on where things I could improve. Although I spend around 10 hours of sketching and arting, I sometimes have the feeling I may not make it in the end. Oh, don't say that. Right now, it's very weird. During Drawtober, I had many ideas and plans what I will do during November and December, and I feel more burnt out than inspired. Here's my tip to you, because I definitely felt like I was going down that path. Stop over planning. Stop being like, I'm going to do this per my day. I'm going to have this big drawing that I'm going to finish in November. When you're literally setting yourself up to fail, rather than like making a big list of things you want to do. And I think it's good to have goals, but there's a point where the goals can become very distracting and actually not benefit you. So instead, be like, when you wake up that day, what do you want to draw? Do you want to work on that big piece that you said you would 3 months ago because you locked yourself in this? Or do you really feel like drawing a woodland fantasy elf because you went for a walk and a leaf looked like a gnome? You know, and one of my old coworkers at CG Cookie, Kent Trammell, he really inspired me when he said, draw what you're, or not draw, well, to me, he was saying, work on what you're most passionate about on that day, because nothing will ever look as good as that idea, or nothing will turn out as good because you're not as passionate about that. So there'll be times where I get like really excited about, like, if I really want to do a YouTube time lapse warm up, and even though I should be working on like my Etsy store or something, it's like, nope, I'm going to do this time lapse because I'm following my gut. I'm really passionate about this. I'm not even sure why I'm so passionate about this, but I need to get this out of my system. So that'd be my big piece of advice to you. Stop over planning and trust your intuition. Really look at like, what do you want to draw that day, and follow that more than anything. Fairworld Gaming says, I draw every day, whether I'm inspired or not, creating original work or just trying to learn from life and other artists. It's a form of relaxation and almost necessity at this point. When I don't draw or create, I feel off that day. I'm right there with you. I feel you on that. Pro BMFK says, I work in bursts, 1 to 2 hours is normal, 3 to 4 easily when I'm inspired, 6 to 7 rarely. Hey, if that works for you. There's no like right or wrong answer, so it's just curious for me to read these. Tijal says, I usually sketch every day, but my daytime job is very tiring at the moment, and I just pass out once I come home. I should post my sketches more, though, but right now I'm working on a few freelance jobs, and I'm not allowed to post progress, so my social media posts have been halted, sadly. Very understandable, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. I know a lot of people, even at the workshop, that's exactly what they said. So, I mean, I don't know if you could afford it, but I think this workshop would be really good for you to go to too, Tijal. Luva says, I draw about 4 to 8 hours a day and also write about 3 to 4 hours a day. So I'm pretty much a cave person. I've been there. In college, I didn't have internet, so that's all I did. I just would draw all the time. Okay, last 2 questions. We got Yushin says, too much, I'm burning out. I have a day job as a concept artist and I'm doing freelance on the side, so I don't have much time and energy for my own stuff. I'm going to have to pick up my jobs better next year. That's good goal to set. But it's also good that you're like learning that that's important to you, you know? You have to go through the failures to understand what your successes look like. You know, it's that simple. Of course, Suzanne. And lastly, Zongo says, I think I draw whenever I can, in between of tattoo sessions at work and my other work. And there is something like 10 hours because I spend 12 hours there. But sometimes I have something like a day on the couch and drawing nothing. And I want to give my time to my girlfriend too and just focus just on her. So it depends, I suppose, but as much as possible. I guess my last thing I'll say before we end the stream is when you get in a relationship, or if you have close friends, or if you're really close with your family, you do want to set time for them as well. So make them a priority, but you also need to make your art a priority. So if that means you have to like slot time or create time slots essentially for them and your work, a lot of people apparently do that go to this workshop. Like Pete Morbacher, he wakes up at 5 a.m. every day before the kids wake up and go to school and do all this. He'll work for 2 hours just by himself, just painting. That's all he does. And then he'll send the kids off, and then him and his wife will go to brunch in Chicago. I mean, he's doing well for himself, so he can take a lot of brunches, as he likes to call them, and spend time with his wife. And then he'll come home, the kids will come home, and then they'll, be a family, and then he'll go to bed around like 9 or 10. And if he needs to skip the brunches, work during the day, he will, and he'll get more of like an 8 to 10 hour slot in. But usually he has like 2 to 3 hours every morning that's like dedicated to drawing. And then at the afternoon or night, he'll have dedicated time to be like a father and a husband. So I think that's good. That was good for me to hear because I was always worried of if I get in a relationship, I'll never have the time to draw anymore and I'll fall. But now I'm in a relationship and I'm learning that when it becomes like around 10 or 11, he'll go to bed. And then I'll stay up till like 2 a.m. minimum and just draw. And there'll be some nights where he'll come home from work and from like, I want to say like 6 to 10, I am with him. I'm not drawing. And if I am, he's watching something on the television or playing a game and I can draw. So actually it kind of works out where I can still draw even while spending time with him, which is great because if I was in a relationship where that couldn't occur, I think I would be kind of screwed because I think I'm so passionate and I need someone that understands that. So the way I look at it is dedicate time for the things that are important to you. And if that includes your family, your close friends, or your relationship, that's great. Make sure that they're a part of your life in some way, but then also make sure you're giving time to art. Treat them like a relationship. If you give time to your relationship per day because you find it important, you should also be spending time drawing art because you should think that that's important as well, Okay, so that's my last little lecture talk of the day. Thank you guys so much for coming to this live stream. Like I said, next Wednesday we're going to have like a draw together. So if you want to come to that and draw, find something in your backyard, post it on the Discord channel below, and we will have a fun little drawing session next week. And that will be hopefully the first of many, because I think what I'm going to start turning my Twitches into is rather than me just, you guys watching me draw, I want it to be more interactive. So that would be something kind of fun to do. Okay, but yeah, thank you so much for watching. Like I said, do these every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Time. And yeah, I guess I don't really have any other news. So thank you guys so much for coming. And just know that I'm really going to strive to finish the Hallow Queen, the Collector, which if you missed the beginning of the stream, I'll show you where that one's at, and the Redback Story chapter. Here's my Collector. So I really started working on more of the arms in this area. And a lot of you guys submitted your hands and arms to be included. So if you want to see your hand or arm included in this drawing, submit it to the Discord. I'm literally adding these hands that you guys are submitting. It's not like some scam or like some weird way to get you to join the Discord. It's literally my way of being like, I want hands that actually mean something to people and they have their own expression rather than me just doing every single hand pose. Because I think having others contribute is kind of cool. Okay. Thank you guys so much for coming. I'm going to go enjoy my Subway, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Okay. Bye, 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 bye.